What would you do if the world's most humble movie star stopped you on the street and said, "I want to pay off your debt"? This isn't a rumor. It's a true story that will leave you speechless. And the reason why? It's something you'd never expect. It all began on an unassuming day in Los Angeles. The kind of day that blends into the city's endless parade of sunshine and traffic jams. The hustle of life played out as usual. Tourists clutching cameras, locals sipping overpriced coffee, and dreams floating through the air like the smog over the skyline. But for Marcus, a 34-year-old mechanic and father of two, it wasn't just another day. He sat on a bench in a small park tucked away from the city's chaos, his head hung low and his hands gripping a stack of unopened bills. Marcus was drowning. It wasn't just the rising rent or the medical expenses from his daughter's recent surgery. It was the weight of a life that felt like it was collapsing around him. A series of bad breaks, bad timing, and what felt like bad luck had led him here, to this moment of quiet desperation. He thought about calling someone, but who? His friends were struggling themselves, his family had already done what they could, and the banks weren't exactly sympathetic. Marcus wasn't sure how much longer he could hold it together. As he sat there, lost in thought, something unusual caught his eye. A man, dressed casually in jeans and a black t-shirt, strolled past him, seemingly unnoticed by everyone else. His face was familiar, but Marcus couldn't place it right away. Then it hit him. Keanu Reeves. Yes, that Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood superstar known for his roles in The Matrix and John Wick, and more recently for his reputation as the nicest guy in show business. Marcus blinked, unsure if his eyes were playing tricks on him. But there he was, casually walking through the park, carrying a book and a cup of coffee as if he didn't have a care in the world. For a moment, Marcus thought about saying something. But what would he say? "Hey, I love your movies?" It felt ridiculous. So, he stayed quiet, watching as Keanu paused to sit on a nearby bench. The two men sat there in silence, just a few feet apart, strangers in a shared moment. Marcus went back to staring at his bills, his mind a blur of worry. And then, something unexpected happened. "Rough day?" The voice was calm, steady, and unmistakably directed at him. Marcus looked up, startled, to see Keanu looking his way, his expression warm and inviting. For a second, Marcus didn't know how to respond. Yeah, you could say that," he managed to mumble, his voice tinged with embarrassment. Keanu nodded, as if he understood more than Marcus had said. "I've had a few of those myself." It was such a simple statement, but it disarmed Marcus completely. Here was one of the most famous men in the world, sitting next to him, talking like they were old friends. "What's going on?" Keanu asked, his tone genuine. Marcus hesitated. He wasn't the type to spill his problems to strangers, let alone a celebrity. But there was something about Keanu's demeanor, something calm, grounded, and unpretentious, that made Marcus feel like he could be honest. So, he told him. He talked about the medical bills, the rent, the loans, and the constant pressure to provide for his family. He didn't go into every detail, but it was enough to paint a picture of someone trying desperately to keep his head above water. Keanu listened without interrupting, his eyes fixed on Marcus, his expression serious but not pitying. When Marcus finished, he leaned back with a sigh, feeling strangely lighter. "Sorry," he said. "I don't know why I just dumped all that on you." Keanu shook his head. "No need to apologize. Sometimes, talking about it helps." There was a pause, and then Keanu said something that caught Marcus completely off guard. "What if I could help?" At first, Marcus thought he'd misheard. "Help? What do you mean?" Keanu leaned forward slightly, his tone still calm but now carrying a sense of purpose. "I mean, what if I could pay off your debts?" The words hung in the air, almost too absurd to be real. Marcus stared at him, trying to process what he just heard. You're serious?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Keanu nodded. "Yeah, I am." Marcus let out a short laugh, the kind that comes from disbelief. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." Keanu's reply was simple, but it carried a depth that Marcus would never forget. "Because someone once did the same for me." And just like that, a story that had started as an ordinary day in Los Angeles was about to take an extraordinary turn. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. For a moment, he thought it was some kind of joke or a misunderstanding. Who offers to pay off a stranger's debt on a whim? But Keanu's calm, steady gaze told him this was no joke. Wait, Marcus said, holding up his hands as if to stop the moment from spinning out of control. You're serious? You don't even know me. Why would you do something like that? Keanu leaned back slightly, his hands resting on his knees. You're right. I don't know you. But I know what it's like to feel like the world's closing in. Like no matter what you do, it's not enough. And sometimes, someone stepping in to help is all it takes to turn things around. Marcus didn't know what to say. His mind was racing, his heart pounding. This had to be a dream, right? A weird, surreal dream brought on by too much stress. But no matter how hard he tried to convince himself, the man sitting in front of him was real. Still, he hesitated. Look, I appreciate it. Really, I do. But I can't just let you do something like that. It's too much. Keanu tilted his head, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. It's not about the money, Marcus. It's about helping someone who needs it. And I can see that you need it. Marcus opened his mouth to argue but stopped. What was he even supposed to say to that? It was true. He did need help. But accepting it from someone like Keanu Reeves? It felt impossible. I don't know, man, Marcus said, shaking his head. I don't want to feel like I'm taking advantage of you or something. Keanu's smile widened, a gentle laugh escaping his lips. Trust me, you're not. I wouldn't offer if I didn't mean it. There was a pause, the kind that feels heavy with unspoken thoughts. Marcus looked down at the stack of bills in his hands, the weight of his situation pressing down on him like never before. Okay, he said finally, his voice barely audible. But why? Why me? Keanu's expression grew serious, and for the first time, Marcus noticed a hint of something deeper in his eyes, something almost haunting. Because I've been where you are, Keanu said softly. A long time ago, when I was just starting out, someone helped me in a way I'll never forget. I didn't think I deserved it either, but they told me, one day you'll pay it forward. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. There was something about the way Keanu said those words, like they carried a weight far greater than the conversation they were having. Before Marcus could ask more, Keanu stood up, brushing off his jeans. Let me make a call, he said, pulling out his phone. I've got a guy who can help sort this out. We'll figure out the details. Marcus watched in stunned silence as Keanu walked a few steps away, speaking quietly into his phone. The surreal nature of the situation hit him again. Here he was, a guy who couldn't catch a break, sitting in a park while one of the biggest movie stars in the world made a call to change his life. But even as hope began to creep into Marcus's heart, doubt lingered. What if this wasn't real? What if it was some kind of elaborate prank? Or worse, what if it didn't work out, and he was left with nothing but the memory of what could have been? When Keanu returned, he sat back down with a reassuring smile. All right, he said. It's in motion. I've got a team that'll reach out to you later today to go over everything. Marcus nodded slowly, still trying to wrap his head around what was happening. I don't even know how to thank you, he said. You don't have to, Keanu replied. Just promise me one thing. What's that? Keanu's gaze was steady, his voice firm. When you're in a position to help someone else, do it. No hesitation. Just pay it forward. Marcus nodded, the words sinking in deeper than he expected. As they shook hands and parted ways, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was bigger than he understood. But the story didn't end there. Later that evening, Marcus received a call from a financial consultant, one of Keanu's connections. They went over every detail of his debt, every payment plan he'd been struggling with. And just like that, his burdens began to lift. But even as relief washed over him, Marcus couldn't help but wonder. Why had Keanu chosen him? Was it really just chance? Or was there something more to the story? And what was it that Keanu had experienced in his own life that made him so determined to help others? The answers were out there, waiting to be uncovered. And as Marcus would soon learn, the truth behind Keanu's generosity was more incredible than he could have ever imagined. Marcus thought the story had ended the moment Keanu's financial consultant confirmed that his debts would be paid off. The calls, the paperwork, the endless struggle, all of it was finally over. For the first time in years, he could breathe. But something about that brief encounter stuck with him. Keanu's words, "I've been where you are," echoed in his mind. There was a depth to them that Marcus couldn't ignore. What had happened in Keanu's life to make him so determined to help a stranger? The next morning, as Marcus scrolled through his phone, he came across a series of interviews and articles about Keanu Reeves. At first, it was casual curiosity, but soon, he was drawn into a story he never expected to find. Keanu's life had been marked by unimaginable losses. His father had walked out when he was a child. His best friend, River Phoenix, had tragically passed away at a young age. But the most heartbreaking revelation was about his partner, Jennifer Syme, who had given birth to their stillborn daughter. Just a year later, Jennifer herself had died in a car accident. Reading these stories, Marcus began to understand the quiet pain Keanu had carried with him for so long. It wasn't just about the tragedies. It was about how he had chosen to live despite them. Keanu had turned his grief into compassion, using his wealth and influence to help others without expecting anything in return. But one detail stood out above all else. In a 2006 interview, Keanu had mentioned a moment from his early career, before he became a household name. He had been a struggling actor, working odd jobs to make ends meet, when an anonymous benefactor paid off a significant debt that had been weighing him down. "I never found out who it was," Keanu had said in the interview, "but their generosity changed my life. It's something I've tried to honor ever since." Marcus sat back, the pieces falling into place. Keanu's act of kindness wasn't random. It was a continuation of a legacy, a way of paying forward the gift that had once saved him. As the realization sank in, Marcus felt a surge of gratitude, not just for the financial relief, but for the profound connection he now felt to a man he'd barely known. But the story wasn't over yet. Later that week, Marcus received an unexpected call from Keanu's assistant, inviting him to meet Keanu again, this time at a charity event in downtown Los Angeles. Marcus hesitated. He wasn't sure he belonged at an event like that, surrounded by celebrities and high-profile philanthropists. But something inside him told him to go. When he arrived, the room was buzzing with activity. People were mingling, sharing stories, and bidding on auction items to raise money for various causes. Marcus felt out of place, but then he spotted Keanu in the crowd. Keanu noticed him too and walked over, his face lighting up with a warm smile. "Marcus, glad you could make it." They talked for a while, and Keanu introduced Marcus to a few people. But then, as the event wound down, Keanu pulled Marcus aside. "I want to show you something," Keanu said, leading him to a quieter part of the venue where a small photo display had been set up. The display featured images of people whose lives had been changed by the charity's work. Children who had received life-saving medical care, families who had been given a second chance, and individuals who had been lifted out of poverty. "This," Keanu said, gesturing to the photos, "is why I do what I do. These are the stories that remind me what matters." Marcus felt a lump in his throat as he looked at the images. He thought about his own family, his wife, his kids, and how different their lives would be now because of Keanu's kindness. Keanu placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You've got a story too, Marcus. And one day, you're going to use it to make a difference. I can feel it." Marcus nodded, the weight of the moment sinking in. As he left the event that night, he realized that Keanu hadn't just helped him financially. He had given him a new perspective, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. But there was still one question that lingered in Marcus's mind. Who had helped Keanu all those years ago? And though Marcus might never know the answer, one thing was clear. The cycle of kindness and compassion that had started with that anonymous act was still going strong, touching lives in ways no one could have imagined. Marcus stared at the city lights from his small balcony that night, the memory of the charity event replaying in his mind. The photos, Keanu's words, and the overwhelming gratitude he felt all swirled together in a storm of emotions. He thought about everything that had led him to this moment. The years of struggle, the chance meeting with Keanu, and the extraordinary kindness that had changed his life forever. But as the days passed, something inside Marcus began to shift. He realized that simply being grateful wasn't enough. Keanu hadn't just given him a fresh start. He had given him a mission. It started small. Marcus began volunteering at a local shelter, helping others who were down on their luck. At first, it felt like a way to repay the debt he felt he owed. But soon, it became something more, a genuine passion for making a difference. One evening, while helping a young man find resources to get back on his feet, Marcus shared his story for the first time. He told the man about Keanu's kindness and how it had inspired him to give back. To Marcus's surprise, the young man's eyes lit up. "Wait, you're telling me Keanu Reeves helped you?" he asked, his disbelief quickly turning into awe. Marcus laughed. "Yeah, it's a long story, but the point is, you don't have to let your struggles define you. Sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to turn things around." Word of Marcus's story began to spread, and soon, local media caught wind of it. Reporters reached out, wanting to know more about how Keanu Reeves had stepped in to change a stranger's life. At first, Marcus was hesitant. He didn't want the story to come across as some sensational headline. But then he realized that sharing it could inspire others to pay it forward, just like Keanu had. In one of the interviews, Marcus was asked, "What would you say to Keanu if you could thank him again today?" Marcus thought for a moment before responding. "I'd tell him that what he did for me wasn't just about the money. It was about showing me what's possible when we choose compassion over indifference. And I'd tell him I'm doing my best to honor that every day." The story gained traction, and people from all over the country reached out to Marcus, sharing their own experiences of kindness and how they had been inspired to help others. But the most unexpected moment came when Marcus received a call from Keanu's assistant. "Keanu wants to meet with you again," she said. "He's been following everything you've been doing, and he's really moved by how you've chosen to give back." A week later, Marcus found himself sitting across from Keanu in a quiet cafe. "I've been hearing great things," Keanu said with a smile. "You've turned your story into something powerful." Marcus shrugged, feeling a little sheepish. "I just wanted to do something that mattered, you know? Like you said, pay it forward." Keanu nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's not always easy, is it? Turning things around. But you're proof that it's possible. And that's the kind of story people need to hear." They talked for hours, sharing stories and ideas. By the end of the conversation, Keanu made a surprising suggestion. "How would you feel about joining one of my charity projects?" he asked. "We're launching a new initiative to support underprivileged families, and I think your perspective could make a real difference." Marcus was stunned. "Are you serious? I mean, I'd love to, but why me?" Keanu smiled. "Because you get it. You've lived it. And I think you could help us reach people in a way that no one else can." In that moment, Marcus realized that his journey had come full circle. He had gone from feeling trapped and hopeless to becoming a part of something far bigger than himself. And it was all because one man had chosen to help him when he needed it most. As the months turned into years, Marcus continued to work alongside Keanu's team, using his story to inspire others and create real, lasting change. And though life was far from perfect, Marcus knew that he had been given a gift, one that came with the responsibility to keep the cycle of kindness alive. Because in the end, it wasn't just about paying off a debt. It was about paying it forward, one act of compassion at a time. Imagine this: a single act of kindness setting off a chain reaction, transforming not just one life, but many. That's exactly what happened when Keanu Reeves stepped in to help Marcus, a man he had never met, pay off his debt. But this story isn't just about Keanu or Marcus. It's about all of us. It's about the power we each hold to make a difference in someone else's life, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem at the time. So, here's the question for you. What will your act of kindness look like? Maybe it's helping a friend who's struggling. Maybe it's volunteering at a local shelter, donating to a cause you believe in, or simply being there for someone who needs a shoulder to lean on. Or maybe it's sharing a story, like this one, to remind people of the good that still exists in the world. If this story inspired you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do if you were in Marcus's shoes? And if you were Keanu, how would you pay it forward? Share your ideas and stories in the comments below. And here's something else. Kindness doesn't have to stop here. Share this video with someone who needs a little hope, a reminder that there are still people out there who care. If you're not already part of our community, now's the perfect time to join. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that celebrates the power of humanity. Remember, one act of kindness can change everything. It might not make the headlines, but it could make all the difference in someone's life. So, what are you waiting for? The next chapter of this story starts with you.